Raw Takes and Company. It's Andrew Hody. Matthias Andahar is with me. Jake is off tonight. Hope everyone is having a great week so far. Great to be back with you on Raw Takes and Co. Matthias, my friend, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good. Definitely could have been better, but just like a lot of times this season, the Steelers let me down. But here we are.
I will say this. The Steelers might have let you down. They kind of let me down in terms of who I picked as well to win the game. Although I will say I did still think Houston could go to the AFC Championship, and I did say that earlier, but I did predict Pittsburgh was going to win the game. I was wrong. But nevertheless, what I do want to emphasize is it was still a great weekend of football. I mean, every game was good. Even
Yeah,
the Steelers Texans game was good until the fourth quarter.
yeah. Other to me, other than the Steelers, Texans, and the Chargers game, other than those two, that was probably the best wild card weekend I've maybe ever seen.
I
Like
did
just
actually enjoy the Patriots Chargers game because it was pretty quick, but I'll get into my thoughts on that in a little bit. But
yeah.
yeah, it was a great weekend for football.
Yeah, I think it was one of the best wild card weekends of football that we've had, period.
And I wasn't necessarily for the whole 14 teams. I thought 12 was a fair number. Uh, I'm glad it's not like 16 where it's half the league. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But I will say this: I like having six wild card games. I do. It's growing on me. There's some things about the NFL during the season I tweak. Like, I mean, if it were up to me, I'd go back to a 16 game schedule, but they want an 18 game schedule, which I think would be better than a 17, but I still think it's too many. And obviously, the streaming service stuff and playing games on different days of the week outside of Thursday, Sunday, and Monday. But, um, there's a lot of things that I would like the NFL to fix there, but probably won't happen. I will say, though, I am glad we have six wild card games. I do enjoy that. And
Yeah.
it's still less than half the league, so I definitely can come around to that a little bit more. I don't know if you agree with me or not.
No, yeah, I agree. With the game total, I might be an old head and say that I would prefer like 16 instead of 17, but
Mhm.
just in general, I think it's a good number. And just like with the playoffs, I was also against it because it's like, what are the seven seed teams ever going to do ever? But we we saw it this season, or we saw it in this playoffs. The seven seed, they had some fight in them. All of them did.
Even the Chargers did, despite them getting smoked. And Green Bay started off with the fight in them, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Before we get things going with our agenda for the show tonight, um, let's just start off by quickly stating that Mike McDaniel was actually fired the day we uploaded the podcast, and we always record the podcast the night before we upload it. So that news literally broke as I was editing the podcast in the morning. So. Um, I don't know if you have any like quick thoughts on that. I kind of covered our bases and filmed a short video that I edited within the podcast last week to make sure we got it out there that this news did happen. But did you have anything on McDaniel to me? Like I kind of get it, but I feel like he did enough to save his job and deserves a serious look from other teams.
Um, I do not think he deserved it. I think we like went a little bit back and forth during the pod. But yeah, like Mike McDaniel, I will take nothing away from his offensive game plan. He is a offensive genius. Um, and he made Tua look great. And now the Dolphins are paying for that because Tua is a bit less good than what they thought because of how Mike McDaniel used him. I, because of how many vacancies there are, I do not think he should go for a head coaching job, but I think if he went for an offensive coordinator, he is the premier offensive coordinator to get.
And I know he did take an interview with Detroit, but we're going to talk a little bit about that more in depth in a little bit. What we got to really start off with, though, is probably the biggest news of the week. I don't know if you'd agree with Matt. Probably the biggest news of the week, Matthias.
Probably, yeah.
The longest tenured head coach in sports, not just the NFL, in sports, Mike Tomlin, stepping down as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Art Rooney did a press conference, I believe it was today. It might have been yesterday, but I think it was today, going over Mike's decision. It seemed like Art was open to keeping him another year. which I think was the right thing to do. But I will say this from Mike Tomlin's perspective, stepping down is certainly the right thing to do. And now, while I think Mike Tomlin should still be and deserves to be the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers for 2026, with the way the fans have called for his job and even called for his job at the games after the Texans blew them out on Monday, calling for him to be fired within the stands. I personally think it's a little disrespectful seeing the guys won a Super Bowl and never gave them a winning season and never gave them a losing season, pardon me. I think that's a little disrespectful to Mike Tomlin for as great of a job as he did in Pittsburgh. I understand why Steeler fans may be a little out of gas with the playoff runs they've had, and I'll let you go into that, Matthias. But to me, the fact that Mike Tomlin stepped down as opposed to getting fired, I think is a lot better. And if you're Mike Tomlin, and from his perspective, I totally get it, especially after how the fans kind of treated you at the end of that game. I think that was just kind of disrespectful. But at the same time, I get that the fans are frustrated. Still, I don't know if that was the right time to do that. But I'll let you go, Matthias, and discuss it. It is your team.
Yeah. Mike Tomlin. I'm going to start with this. I am happy that he stepped down for two reasons. One, so that the Steelers can finally change from what they have been for the past 19, no, not even like the past 7 years specifically. Like they were always I saw a YouTuber say it that they were always a C plus team, thinking that they were an A plus or an A minus team, and it was like you could never take them seriously, even though they themselves would walk around like they're the biggest dog on campus. And like Mike Tomlin, he is a good head coach. I will never say that like he has been a bad head coach. I just think the game has gone past him and that he just needed to go in a separate direction from the Steelers. He honestly, with his game plan, he could make a great defensive coordinator or he could make a great defensive minded head coach somewhere. But it's just somebody else has to do that main coaching. I mean, that main offensive job. But yeah, Mike Tomlin, I'm grateful for everything you've done, but it's been time.
He is still under Steeler control because he stepped down. So if Mike Tomlin this offseason, and I am going to take another extra second here to just discuss this, but if he did take an extra offseason if he wanted a head coaching job now, he would have to be traded via the Steelers, which I think eliminates him from going to several other teams, which we'll discuss during the coaching carousel here right now, actually. So we have a total of 9 jobs now open, and possibly more, I want to add. We're going to give ourselves a little extra time for this. Um, for me, Matthias, with 9 jobs and possibly more, because I think the Buffalo Bills job might open up for as ridiculous as I think that would be. If Sean McDermott doesn't beat Denver, it's a possibility from what it looks like. Um, I, I mean, there's a lot of jobs here I think are sought after, and there's some jobs that I think not to even bother like looking too much into, like the Arizona job. I don't know what's exciting about that. The Browns job, you could argue, isn't that exciting, but what kind of is exciting about the Browns job is that, they do have a defense. I mean, and they do have some offensive talent, like with Quinshon Judkins and Jerry Jeudy kind of did recover at the end of the year. I mean, but you look at the Ravens and the Steelers now both being open. I mean, the two longest tenured coaches in the NFL are gone from their jobs. They're gone. They're done. I mean, John Harbaugh probably will get hired by somebody else, and Mike Tomlin maybe. I personally think Mike Tomlin's going to take a year off, but Andy Reid's now the longest tenured coach in football, and so for me, looking at these jobs that are now all lined up, there's some really good ones out there and some really big names available. And so to me, I want your thoughts on this cycle. Who do you think could go where? And what do you think the best jobs and the worst jobs are?
Um, to just go off a couple, um, I think I think for the Pittsburgh Steelers,
Mhm.
I did a little bit of research, courtesy of ESPN, not sponsored, not affiliated, but they threw a lot of good names that I thought that I would agree with. First one is Notre Dame head coach Marcus Freeman. Um, he has those boys play their hearts out every week, and that's what, and it fits like that Tomlin-esque mold. And Art Rooney never fires never fires almost period, but especially never fires head coaches. Like this is going to be the Steelers' fourth head coach since 1969. Like the Steelers do not move off of head coaches. And if you get a younger guy like Marcus Freeman, you're going to have job security and you're going to have plenty of time to make that team the way you want it. I have some defensive coordinators, Jesse Minter, Jeff Hafley, and Chris Shula. Out of those three, my favorite is probably Chris Shula, who's the defensive coordinator of the LA Rams. And we've seen the LA Rams defense. They have been on fire. Like their defense all year is like like those front four focused, and to a fault, that's how the Steelers have been operating. But yeah, I think like Chris Shula could fit that. Like, if you want to not change much on the defensive end, Chris Shula is probably your guy. But I think if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers and if you're Art Rooney, you need to call Brian Flores. The way that he had the Dolphins play when he was coaching the team,
And he
yeah,
should have never been fired. Pardon me for interrupting you there. He should have never been fired.
yeah, correct. And like he was fired more so because of his attitude off the field. Not that he did anything egregious. But yeah, other than that, I think he has a great game plan. His schemes have always been good. And he kind of had that little Mike Tomlin of just like taking a team like the Dolphins who weren't there just yet, and he elevated them. And do I want to go back to a cycle of like going to the playoffs every year knowing we're not going to win? No. But I think Brian Flores could be that guy of elevating it just a bit more, not being a better coach than Mike Tomlin, but using the pieces Mike Tomlin has better than he did, if that makes sense.
I can see that. I mean, Brian Flores to me is definitely a candidate I think a lot of teams should look at, not just the Steelers. I'll do things from the Browns side of things real quick. I like Mike McDaniel a lot for the Browns job. I think having an offensive mind being your head coach would be nice again. It would be good for Shador Sanders if you choose to keep him and go that route where he's competing at least for the starting job. Another interesting thing with the Browns is Deshaun Watson's under contract another year. Is there going to be talks this offseason about giving him another shot while you have him if he's fully healthy? I don't think anyone's really opened the door on that conversation yet, but I think it's a conversation you need to have. And I'm not saying I encourage it or it's the right call because I don't know if it is. I don't know if it is, but it's a conversation I think that needs to be had. Elevating Jim Schwartz. I mean, the big thing here too is like the Browns have stated they want Jim Schwartz as their DC. Well, he's in the building already. Why not elevate him? And I think the Browns really like Tommy Rees too. If you elevate Jim Schwartz, I think he likely keeps Tommy Rees as his offensive coordinator. And I really like Tommy Rees and the job he did too. I'm still on the side they should have never fired Stefanski, but now that's a name out there like could Kevin Stefanski be good for the Miami Dolphins job? It's a team that needs to completely rebuild, and maybe Kevin Stefanski would fit with Miami because he could finally pick his guy at quarterback. I mean, obviously the Dolphins don't have a high pick, but he could possibly figure out a way to pick his guy because we're assuming as of right now it's not Tua. But back to the Browns job, I don't think they're getting John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh is a guy that even Steve Biscotti brought up in his press conference the other day, probably wants a quarterback that's ready to win now, which the best job there is the Baltimore Ravens, but John Harbaugh was fired from the Baltimore Ravens. So in that case, maybe Atlanta Falcons for John Harbaugh. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
to me, if I were to list off the jobs, and you can go ahead, Matthias, in here in a second, and list off which jobs you think are the best to worst. I think the Ravens job, in terms of the pure talent on the roster, is the best job. And knowing that it is a good organization for the most part, that's only had three head coaches in franchise history, I think that's the best job in terms of the talent in the organization. I would say for job security, the Steelers is probably your best bet, given their history of only three coaches since 1969. The Falcons job is probably the third best job, given the talent they do have. And now that Matt Ryan is the president of football operations, Matt Ryan's definitely going to have a say in picking the guy he wants to run that football team. And, Matt Ryan maybe didn't win the Super Bowl. He still appeared in one, and he's still beloved in Atlanta and probably always will be. So I think Matt Ryan at the helm is going to definitely have a say in what happens with the Falcons. So that job to me is on the higher end. I think the Browns and Dolphins are in the middle. Obviously, the Browns, knowing their history, is probably not the most attractive job. Defensively, it is attractive because they do have a lot of good defensive players. And I'm sorry, nothing interests me about the Arizona job. Nothing at all. There's nothing there that screams that that's going to be a job you're going to want. So I'll leave the floor open to you for a little bit. I know we might go over time for this, but what do you think about just the jobs in general and where coaching candidates may want to go?
So for me, I think I would have Atlanta probably first, not only
Really?
because of the talent that they have now, but because most of their talent is young. Like for Baltimore, they have Lamar Jackson. They have probably the most talented out of the 9 teams, but it's just that age is starting to catch up. And same thing with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has been running on too many 1 year rentals. Um, and it's caught up to them ages ago, but they've still gotten those winning records. Um, but yeah, for me, it's probably Atlanta number one. That team has been exciting with a mediocre head coach. Now give them a good head coach or even a great one. That team's going to be scary. I have been high on Atlanta since for the past like 2 years. Um, and if they get a good coach, I think that would be justified on me being high on them. For the to speed past the rest of the order, probably Atlanta one, Baltimore for the same reasons as you. I actually have the Giants up there as well.
I didn't even mention the Giants. Good point there.
Yeah,
Giants is a good job.
yeah, Cam Scatabo, Jackson Dart. You're going to have a fun offense, and if you just bring a little bit more attitude to that culture and get consistency inside that culture, it's that team could be scary very soon. I also, and then after that, Pittsburgh, probably Tennessee, then Cleveland, then Miami, then Las Vegas and Arizona. Also,
Raiders job too. That's right. Mhm.
also for the last bit, I think a potential coach that I haven't been hearing a lot of people talk about that could be one is Robert Saleh.
Another good
He has
candidate.
been he has been working with nothing and making something out of that 49ers defense, and just even when he got fired as a Jet, it was mostly because of his controversy. I mean, not controversies with his cohesion or lack thereof with Aaron Rodgers. But once you give him something that he could build from the ground up, he has a great defensive mind. He just needs a little bit work on offense, but that's why you have an offensive coordinator. He could make a good coach somewhere.
To me, I think as I said, I think the Ravens overall is the best job, seeing it's Lamar Jackson, but you also got to have a personality that can deal with Lamar Jackson. I mean, Steve Biscotti even said in his press conference that that's what they're kind of looking for in a nutshell. Um, to me, like in terms of the candidates though that are out there, I think John Harbaugh is probably your number one. I don't think Mike Tomlin is going to be actively searching for another head coaching job right now, just because I think he's going to want some time off. He seems like a guy that wants to just go live his life with his family for a little bit, and I don't blame him. That's fine. John Harbaugh should do the same thing too if he wanted to, honestly. But I think John Harbaugh wants to get back at it. So, um,
Mm-hmm.
to me, I feel like John Harbaugh is going to be the most sought after name. I go with Kevin Stefanski, maybe two in terms of the former head coaches. Mike McDaniel, maybe three. I mean, yeah, Robert Saleh's up there too, obviously. So he's four. Brian Flores probably tied with him at 4 or 5. That's probably the five big names that I think might be getting head coaching jobs. I think you look at trying to think of some other big name coordinators that you could consider. Obviously, Jim Schwartz, seeing what he did with Cleveland's defense the last few years, did have the defense single handedly take them to the playoffs in 2023, along with Flacco. But still, that's something to look at. And he did, I think, get not an offer. I'm sorry, pardon me, an interview with the Ravens. I think he had an interview there. So And that would be something that'd be interesting for the Browns because they definitely don't want Jim Schwartz going to a AFC North opponent, you know? That would be
Yeah.
within the division and that'd be scary for them. And the other thing with Tomlin, if Tomlin does decide to coach this year because the Steelers still have full control, you'd have to trade to go get Mike Tomlin. So you think the Steelers would be willing to do a within division trade with Baltimore for Mike Tomlin? I don't think so. And I don't think they would do that with the Browns either. They know better. So to me, I feel like the Steelers are just, or if they do trade Mike Tomlin to another team, it would be like the Giants or something out of conference, even if Mike Tomlin wants to coach, even, which I don't think he does for this year. He might get into it
Mhm.
next year again, but I think he's going to take a year off. So that means I think Harbaugh is probably your best candidate you're looking at. Some other great coordinators out there. You mentioned Robert Saleh. And another thing you intrigued me with a little bit too, a job that I think actually is pretty good that we're not talking enough about, the Tennessee job. You have Cam Ward going on year two. Yes, that roster still needs a lot of work, but you know what? You still have a quarterback in his second year, and second years are big for quarterbacks, especially young quarterbacks. So, well, obviously, young quarterbacks, the second year for a quarterback's a big year. So I think Tennessee is a place that somebody can look at and say, this job could be good to get your young quarterback if Cam Ward's your guy. Like a Kevin Stefanski, I think would be a great head coach in Tennessee. So that's a job to me that's intriguing too. But for the whole carousel, it's going to be absolute chaos to see what happens with all these organizations and where everybody goes because there's some big names out there this cycle that I don't think anyone expected, and if you did expect it, you got it anyway. Like the big thing is John Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin are both done. That's the biggest thing with this cycle. And you look at the entire AFC North, only Cincinnati has kept their head coach going into this offseason, Zach Taylor. So you have three head coaches that are going to be rookies, possibly not necessarily rookies, but at least in their first year with a new franchise in the NFL going into 2026. So the floor is yours, Matthias. If you have anything else before we move on to Wild Card Weekend,
Um, I don't have too much more. It's just I think going into this season, if you said that three of the four AFC North coaches left, people would have marked down and asked, okay, so where's Zach Taylor going? So I think it's really funny that Zach Taylor's the only one that stayed. So
imagine if
yeah,
Cincinnati did fire Zach Taylor, which I don't think they should have, by the way. I think Cincinnati's doing the right thing not firing Zach Taylor. But I don't know if we've ever had an entire division have a vacancy at head coach at one time. I don't know if that's ever happened, Matthias. In
I
NFL.
don't think it has. It's funny. It's also it also leaves a lot of parity because it's like they could get a good coach like for the Steelers. They could get a good coach and um like be right back where they were, which is would be annoying. But it's like, okay, well, they're going to go 10-7, go to the playoffs. Um, or they could get like no shade at all, but or Art Rooney could take the lazy path and upgrade Arthur Smith, and then it's like, oh boy, here comes 4-13.
From based on what I watched with Art Rooney's press conference today, it does not look like that's going to be what he does. It looks like they're going to interview candidates from with outside the building.
No, yeah, I was using
I don't
that as a
think they're going to want
hypothetical,
Mike's
but like,
people. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
nothing against Mike's people, I don't think. I think they're open to it, but I don't think they're going to be looking at Mike's staff and say, that's the future. We need to bring in a guy externally who can put his program here because we're the Pittsburgh Steelers. At the end of the day, you go from Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher to Mike Tomlin. The Steelers are the only proven organization right now that does not fire coaches. They don't do it.
yeah,
So to me, I feel like this is going to be the job we find out last. I feel like they're going to thoroughly do this search. They're not going to rush into anything. They're going to make sure they find the right guy. And here's the other thing with the Steelers, Matthias, and I don't know if you agree with me or not. I know you're a Steelers fan. And I'm a Browns fan, so I don't want to sound biased or anything, but this is what I look at with the Steelers. Aaron Rodgers came here for Mike, is what Art Rooney said in the press conference that I watched. He said that Aaron Rodgers came here for Mike, so he doesn't expect Aaron Rodgers to stay. So Quarterback is going to be completely question marks surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. The defensive pieces they have, there's some assets there. Do you rebuild and get a coach to implement a system and take a year down with a rookie head coach to just figure things out and implement his system? Because I feel like knowing the Steelers are going to give a rookie head coach plenty of time.
Yes.
So I think that's a real possibility of a potential rebuild in Pittsburgh that starts this year. It's possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think it's a real possibility that the Steelers can be rebuilding this year with a rookie head coach, and they're focused on 2027 and beyond just because they need to figure out the footprint for what their long-term future is at head coach. I mean, when you have a guy in the building for 19 years and then he leaves, and then before you had a guy in the building for 15 years, he leaves, and then before a guy in the building for 23 years and he leaves. I mean, you didn't fire those guys, they left. And
Uh-huh.
so this is not a process the Steelers do frequently, and they did it in three completely different eras. So to me, the Steelers, to me, they're going to be really, really diligent and patient with their head coaching search compared to any other team that's looking for a head coach right now. Like the Browns and the Titans and teams like that, I think they're going to have their coaches sooner than the Steelers. The Ravens might take a little bit more time too because of the roster and the organization they are. But I feel like the last head coaching opening we're going to see filled is going to be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I
I
don't know if
think
you agree with me on any of that, but that's just what I see. I'm not saying, and I could be wrong. You know, the Steelers could win the Super Bowl next year with a rookie head coach, and everything I just said is irrelevant. But
I'd
still,
lose my
this is how
mind.
I see it. That's how I see it.
Yeah, just for a quick synopsis, I do believe they should get a rookie head coach, or not a rookie, but they should let next year is the beginning of a rebuild because Aaron Rodgers is most likely leaving. Um, most of the defensive pieces, like Jalen Ramsey, like all of them except I believe TJ Watt is either on a 1 year rental or the other one is Cam Hayward and he could retire.
Mhm.
Like he's nearing that point of his career. So I wouldn't be surprised if Pittsburgh looks completely different on the defensive end. And on the offensive end, we drafted Will Howard. I want to see him play. I don't want to see Mason Rudolph. I want like it's going to be messy, it's going to be ugly, but the only difference between that and the past 7 years is it was ugly and we were winning. Now it's going to be it was ugly and we're losing. And I'm going to be I have to be okay with that because I have to trust that they are going to be able to turn around and rebuild it. And that's what I'm more so looking for. I'm more so looking for them doing what the Patriots did instead of trying to do what the Saints did around like the 2020s.
What the Patriots also did is interesting to me because, and I saw this the other day about Jerron Mayo only getting the 1 year. And I personally am in the standpoint you can't give a head coach only a single year. You got to give them time to implement their system. So I didn't think Jerod Mayo should have been fired his first year. Now, obviously, they went and got Mike Vrabel, which was the absolute right decision. So I'm not going to argue that either. But to me, like Mike Vrabel was also available in 2023, or was it 2024? 2024. He was available
Yeah.
in 2024. He was working with the Browns as a consultant. So to me, I feel like if I would have been Robert Kraft, I would have jumped on the Mike Vrabel opportunity then and like had the rough year and know that the year you were about to have was probably coming with Drake May at the helm. But, at the same time, all the chips fall where they are for a reason. Obviously, it worked out for New England so far, so you cannot argue it. And I don't want to argue it, but I'm just saying, like, to me, you don't want to be the Pittsburgh Steelers and in that situation either. And this is a team that's known for longevity with their coaching staff. So you hire a guy, you better make sure you understand that you are probably going to be a 3-14, 4-13, 5-12 rebuilding team. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because Mike T's not coming into the building with the Mike T Steelers culture, which might have been to have a winning season every year and maybe make the playoffs. As Art Rooney put it in his press conference today, Um, he said that, or at least I watched it today, as I said, it might have been yesterday, but I'll have to check the date on it. But still, Art Rooney said, like, I'd rather be in contention every year, but at the same time, you gotta do what you can with the horses you have. Like, and he's 100% right. And you're absolutely right about the defense. And I don't even think we're talking about the offensive pieces that might be available now. DK Metcalf is a Steeler. I mean, do you think you want to have DK Metcalf in a rebuild?
My main thing for the Steelers, at least on offense, is they're doing already great with the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Like that rebuild of the offensive line was quick and it was efficient. If Will Howard can develop, like we know the jokes about Ohio State quarterbacks, whatever. But if Will Howard can develop because he's going to have time to develop, I'm going to I'm going to root for him all the way. And as long as they keep those two, the offensive line and Pat Fryermuth, like I have been high
And
on
I want
Pat
to correct
Fryermuth.
myself there. I was confusing Alex Highsmith for Pat Fryermuth for a minute.
Oh no,
I
you're
said
okay.
Highsmith was a great pass catcher, and I meant Fryermuth, and I just couldn't. I knew I screwed up the name because I knew Highsmith's a linebacker. So sorry, pardon me.
Yeah,
Go on.
I mean he's a great pass catcher for the defense.
He is. He is.
He's made a
He
lot of
is.
great plays for the
I meant
defense.
Pat Fryermuth though, so I wanted to correct myself there because to me Fryermuth would be a great player elsewhere too. So do the Steelers start to give up assets? Is my thing I'm trying to mention. I'm not saying you do that. I'm just saying it's a possibility.
Yeah, I'm like I think they should, other than Pat Fryermuth, like that guy. I I am very high on him. It's just he needs to be used. But yeah,
And
we should probably move on.
yeah, we got to get to the wild card game. So yeah, that's our thoughts on the Pittsburgh Steelers for the most part. I know we talked a lot about them there, along with the coaching cycle. So big names in this coaching cycle, and I think, as I said earlier, it's going to be absolute chaos to see who goes where and what the future looks like for the
So
NFL.
we stopped recording the podcast, and of course, an hour later, breaking news happens. John Harbaugh is going to be the next head coach of the New York Giants, according to multiple reports. ESPN is where I saw it first. So want to get that out there. They're still working on some things as I'm recording this in terms of the contract deal, yada, yada, yada. So there's nothing official as I'm recording this video. Of course, obviously, we recorded the podcast about an hour ago. So we didn't get to react to it, Matthias and I, as it happened, but we wanted to make sure, of course, as always, that we have the news on the podcast when it arrives. So that way, when you watch, of course, you get the latest. So John Harbaugh is going to be the New York Giants head coach, according to reports as I filmed this. That is not official yet under any circumstances. So that is just according to reports. John Harbaugh will be the next New York Giants head coach. Stay tuned next week for our full thoughts on the news, and if it's official by next week as well. And enjoy the remainder of this edition of Raw Takes and Co.
But we're going to get to the teams that are still within the dance trying to win the Super Bowl. Starting things off in Charlotte, North Carolina, with the Rams and the Panthers. This was one of the best games of the weekend. Matthew Stafford looked awesome. Bryce Young looked awesome in this game. And you know what? The Panthers, for being 8-9, still they're a division winner. They went out there and played their asses off. So I think we got to give props to Dave Canales for doing a terrific job with Carolina this year. I really think Carolina over exceeded expectations, not just making the playoffs at 8-9 or whatever, but winning the games they did win and being competitive in a playoff game. To me, I feel like their future is pretty bright still. I do. I mean, I'm still not so sure I'm sold on Bryce Young, but Bryce Young looked pretty damn good in that game, and he had some highlights throughout the season. So I'm not giving up on him. Chuba Hubbard also looked really good. Puka Nakua went off, obviously, too. Matthew Stafford, 304 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. You got to give credit to the Rams, too. And their defense wasn't in particularly great in this game. But Matthias, I'll leave the floor open to you on your thoughts on this one. The Rams are moving on. I'm kind of happy because I did pick the Rams to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, but I want to leave your thoughts on the game on the table as well.
Yeah, the Rams. Actually, I'm going to start the other way. The Panthers have shown that they can keep up with the big guns because going into this season, we said the Packers and the Rams were going to be two big teams in the NFC. And they beat the Packers, and they beat the Rams in the regular season. And then in the playoffs, it felt like they had their number here too. Like they were leading with the two. I mean, they were leading by the time the 2-minute warning came by. But the Rams, man, or like we'll see a theme this week, but sometimes star power just outdoes it. And sometimes the game is just decided by who has the ball last instead of who is the better team. And the Rams, I won't say they got lucky, but they had the ball last.
It was a great game all around, and the Rams did have the ball last. You're absolutely right. I think you analyzed it perfectly. To me, though, this says a lot about the Carolina Panthers, just how far they've come from where they were 2 years ago. We were talking about the Panthers being the worst organization in the NFL, and they still very well may be a bad organization. They did finish 8-9, 8-10 if you include the playoff games, but they still won the division, and that's how the NFL works. To get to the playoffs, you got to win your division too, or be a wild card and lucky. So to me, I think it says a lot about the Panthers for how far they come, that they played as well as they did in this game. For the Rams, their offense, nothing to worry about there for me, but I am a little bit more concerned about their defense based on how they played against Carolina's offense. I think they should have shut them down a little bit more, seeing what they did in the regular season. Matthias, you are going to have the floor to start off with our next game, the Bears and Packers, your Chicago Bears.
So the Steelers and Bears get their voodoo magic from the same person. just starting it with that. Because at the end of the first half, if you saw the score, or if you only watched the first half of this game, you're like, all right, time to go to bed. It was 21-3. And Jordan Love is playing out of his mind. And if I were to tell you after that, Jordan Love had 323 yards and 4 touchdowns, you're like, okay, he continued to play out of his mind. Congrats, Green Bay, for moving on. But instead, what happened, this Chicago Bears, man, like right when it became the fourth quarter, because I was watching this game live, right when it became the fourth quarter, shout out to Montez Sweat, because he just continually pressured Jordan Love, and then they shut down the rush. I mean, they shut down the rushing attack. Josh Jacobs in 19 carries only had 55 yards. Like it was a defensive masterpiece. What I wish it was that the whole way through, but they definitely made it when it counted. Caleb Williams, 361 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and Colston Loveland. Like all the things that I could say about Colston Loveland and Caleb Williams is what I hope to be able to say in a couple years about Will Howard and Pat Freiermuth. Because Colston, as a rookie, went off for 8 receptions and 137 yards, and a lot of those catches were in crucial times. And Caleb Williams, I believe that I said it last week, I'll say it again, that he proved that he might not be the best QB, but he is one of the more clutch ones. And he just shows up when he is needed. Andrew, what do you have to say? This is also the biggest comeback in the Bears have done against the Packers.
I'll just say this. Caleb Williams earned my respect in that playoff game. And listen, he started off actually awful in the game, but you look at his second half numbers, the guy threw for over 340 yards. Yeah, he had 2 picks, but that was all in the first half for the most part where the turnovers were taking place and he looked awful. And that really weird 4th and 4 play that Ben Johnson did. Caleb Williams turned it around, and you're absolutely right on how clutch he's been, and he earned my respect for that. It doesn't matter as long as you win. So Caleb Williams won, and he played out of his mind. Jordan Love played out of his mind, too. He put the Packers in a position to win this game. So for me, Green Bay blowing the lead, maybe more so on coaching. I still think Matt LaFleur should come back next year, so I'm not on the table of that he should be fired in any way, shape, or form. I will say this, though. What does upset me about this game is Ben Johnson. Even though Ben Johnson coached a great game, not taking that away from him, unsportsmanlike conduct on the coach should be a penalty in the NFL. The way the handshake thing took place, I just think was very unsportsmanlike. The locker room thing is the locker room thing, but the handshake to me was what I think was it was like, what did the Packers ever really do to you for them to warrant that? Like, I get that the Bears, struggled against the Packers in recent memory, but still, to me, I do not feel like that was called for whatsoever. But as I said, he coached a great game. He coached a great game, doing a great job, turning the Chicago Bears around. I'm not going to argue that. So Ben Johnson deserves a ton of praise.
I argue the other way of like the handshake thing, whatever, and like he just like embodied a bunch of, I mean, he just embodied what years of Chicago Bears fans have been wanting to do. And this is the first time they were finally able to get one up on what has been essentially Big Brother since I've been alive.
Mm-hmm.
And like that was their moment. Like, I'm not saying it's their Super Bowl. That I think they could be a very sneaky team, but like this was their first big moment of like, we finally did it. We finally got over on the guy that their QB said that he owned us. They just finally got one over. So I am A-okay with him celebrating like that. And like, it's just, it would be like the same thing of like, what if this happened with Steelers versus Browns in the playoffs? Like it would be like, okay, that sucks. That's a bit in bad taste, but it goes par for the course with the rivalry.
To me, as I said, the locker room celebration, totally fine. That's fine to do that with your players. I'm not going to argue that. You're having fun. It's the handshake that really got to me because I do personally like Matt LaFleur, and Ben Johnson. It's not like Ben Johnson was on Matt LaFleur's staff; he was on Dan Campbell's, and Ben Johnson did record a lot of wins as the offensive coordinator against the Packers when he was with the Lions. So to me, I just don't think it's sportsmanlike from Ben Johnson. Now, I'm not saying he's not doing a great job as Bears head coach. He certainly is, but to me, like, you're still representing your franchise. And to me, that's just not a great look to represent your franchise like that. And, props to the Bears fans. I mean, the Bears fan base in particular should be really happy. They just won a playoff game for the first time in 16 years. They should be thrilled right now. So, and Caleb Williams, as I said, did a great job in this game. And I've never been a big Caleb Williams fan. I'm not going to say anything about Caleb Williams. He turned the ball over, sure. But he went from being awful in that game to being great in that game. And I think he deserves a ton of props for that. And I'm giving them a serious shot against the Los Angeles Rams at home this upcoming weekend. So that's just my personal thoughts on the matter. The handshake thing is what got to me with that game. And it's with all due respect to both Matt LaFleur and Ben Johnson. But for Ben Johnson, like, come on, man. You don't have to be that disrespectful. Like, in the locker room, celebrate with your team. Sure, that's fine. But not on the football field against the opponent. Come on. Like, you won. You didn't lose. Like, I would have been more okay with it if they would have lost than if they would have won. I just don't think it was called for. And trust me, Green Bay is going to be using that as bulletin board material in 2026 when they see him twice next year. All right, Matthias, we are moving on to the Jaguars and Bills. All right, and so you know how high I've been on Trevor Lawrence all year. I know how low you've been on the Bills this year, but I know you're a Josh Allen fan. Josh Allen came through and won the first road playoff game of his career. Props to him. And the Jaguars still gave them one hell of a game. I think the turnovers were the big thing for Jacksonville. Obviously, especially at the end of the game, the turnover did it for them. James Cook, an okay 15 carry, 46-yard performance. Khalil Shakir did get 82 receiving yards. So Josh Allen did get the ball to Shakir a lot, but still, like, that could be shaky when it comes to late in the playoffs. Sean McDermott, I don't think should be on the hot seat anyway, but still probably is because this is the sixth seed under the most pressure. They are going next week to Denver, but still, to me, like, the Bills won this game. They proved that they could win on the road in the playoffs. And I still think Jacksonville deserves credit. They gave Buffalo a hell of a game. Liam Cohen did do a great job this season. And I think, the reporter that went viral that told Liam Cohen all that stuff about the great job he's doing and to keep his head up, I think that was bittersweet. Obviously, probably in Liam Cohen's mind, though, we lost a playoff game. So this was a great game all around. And I think if you're the Jaguars, even though you lost this playoff game, you didn't necessarily need to have that much pressure on you because you needed a rebound from the last 2 years, and they certainly did that. Matthias, go ahead.
I This game Josh Allen needed,
I agree with
because
you. Yeah.
this was a game where I've been saying, like, most of the second half of the year, if James Cook is shut down, the Bills are significantly worse. And it was against a great running defense in Jacksonville where James Cook was essentially shut down. And Josh Allen, like, the big weaknesses did pop up. Josh Allen, even though he had 273 yards while you were reading out the stats, the highest receiver, the receive Khalil Shakir only had 82 yards and he was leading the team. The other people were Brandon Cooks, Keon Coleman, Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid, Terrell Shavers, Gabe Davis, who probably should be a bigger name at this point, only with 2 catches and 14 yards. And random shout out to Frank Gore Jr. with 1 catch and 6 yards, because I didn't know that Frank Gore's son plays in the league and that he's on a playoff team. But yeah, other than that, Josh Allen needed to step up, and he did. And I think this is a game where, even though it was definitely one where your heart's beating out your chest when you're done, this is one where you could look back and just like take a good deep breath of like, okay, like, this is real. The Chiefs aren't in the playoffs anymore. Aren't in the playoffs. Joe Burrow's not in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson's not in the playoffs. And we just beat a team that had our number earlier this year. What can we actually do?
I think you're absolutely right. Josh Allen needed this game more than anybody. I think he even needed it more than McDermott, to be honest with you, because I still feel like the Bills would have brought back McDermott regardless. But still, to me, like, Josh Allen needed this game. His best weapon, I think, all year round has been Dalton Kincaid for the most part. But
Yeah.
Khalil Shakir did come through for the most part when needed to. Not in terms of touchdowns. In terms of touchdowns, though, you look at a guy like Dawson Knox, who certainly came through for the Bills. The Bills, we did talk about their concerns all year long, but to me, I feel like Josh Allen is the one guy that needed this game more than anybody. And we have to remember the Bills are in the playoffs as a 6 seed and have a ton of pressure on them with no Patrick Mahomes, no Joe Burrow, no Lamar Jackson to get to the Super Bowl. And I certainly think by the fact they just won a playoff game on the road shows that they have the pedigree to possibly do so, knowing the names that are on their roster and on the sideline. Sean McDermott's still a big coaching name. Josh Allen's still probably a top 5 quarterback, if not a top 2 or 3 quarterback in this league. And I don't necessarily agree with the whole, if Josh Allen doesn't get to the Super Bowl this year, he never will. But I can understand where that perspective is coming from. So I do want to say that. So for the Bills side of things, I think you're absolutely right. For the Jaguars side of things, I think they were just happy to be there. They had a great season, and I think next year they got to show that they can replicate what they did this year on the next year and try to win a playoff game. So that's my thoughts there. I wouldn't be too worried if you're Jacksonville right now. Enjoy the offseason and now get ready for 2026 to prove that you're better than this. Moving on now, Matthias, you're going to have the floor for Philly and San Francisco. The Niners beat up, but they still came through.
Yeah, the 49ers, man, this was another game where it came back down, where a team came back from down, and another game going down to the wire. Going into the fourth quarter, Philly had the ball. Philly had the lead. They had control. All they had to do was hold on. And then the San Francisco scored 13. Like, that's funny because that's not even top 3 of how many points a team has scored in a quarter in these playoffs, because we had the Bears scored 25 and both the Jaguars and Bills scored 14. So that just goes to show how explosive this wild card weekend was in the fourth quarter alone. But Brock Purdy had 262 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he did have 2 interceptions. But other than that, like, this team would have been significantly scarier had they stayed healthy. Unfortunately, George Kittle, with a Achilles injury, I believe. He's going to be out for the rest of the season, and I don't know what that's even going to look like for the rest of his career. But Christian McCaffrey, man, he's like if you had Jonathan Taylor as a running back, but then Jonathan Taylor can also catch the ball and be your top 2 receiver. Like, he's absolutely ridiculous. I don't think they're going to be a big thing. I don't think they're going to be a big problem anymore, unfortunately, because of George Kittle going down. To quickly talk about the Eagles, the offensive woes showed. Like, Saquon Barkley, he rose to the occasion in the playoffs, but the play calling wasn't good. Patullo, I believe he got let go, and I believe that was the right decision.
We did get
and
let
I don't
That's official.
And I don't even know what they're going to do with Sirianni, because Eagles fans have hated his guts, and this was just like another thing of like, I don't know. They just never have a good cohesion with, like, Philly, and Sirianni has not had good cohesion. Like,
great. Do I have to get started? I have to get started, don't I? Because I'm going to talk about things from the Philly perspective. I know you did a lot about San Francisco, and I agree with you on all of it. Injuries big, George Kittle being down, that's going to hurt them. I don't disagree. However, Philly, Nick Sirianni won you a Super Bowl, took you to 2, and has only had 1 season where he didn't win double-digit games, and it was his rookie season where they went 9-8 and were still a wild card. He's a winner. He's a winner. He doesn't have losing seasons. He's in the playoffs every year. They lose 1 playoff game after coming off a Super Bowl victory. And Nick Sirianni needs to be on the hot seat. Are you kidding me? What other team, what other NFL franchise with all the openings we have wouldn't hire Nick Sirianni in a heartbeat?
I think that's your issue, that you always put it on the perspective of what other team would have X head coach when other teams also have bad head coaches. It's just Sirianni, I feel like, has shown that
Sirianni wins.
He has been carried by this roster, because he has had star-studded roster over and over again. Yes, he's won a Super Bowl. I'm not taking away from that. What I'm saying is, even in the Super Bowl winning year, we were looking at the regular season and being like, man, this team is underperforming. Like,
they won the Super Bowl. Who cares? They won the damn Super Bowl. They were still 13-4. They swept the Cowboys for the first time in forever last season. Like, who cares? They won the damn Super Bowl. Here's my thing, Matthias, and pardon me for interrupting you on that, but here's the thing. Nick Sirianni has done nothing but win for the Philadelphia Eagles. It makes no sense whatsoever that he should be on any kind of hot seat, and he's a Super Bowl champion in recent memory. What part of Nick Sirianni being a Super Bowl champion recently, only having 1 season where he won a single digit and it was still 9-8, does anybody understand? He's 59-26 all time as the Eagles head coach. It is asinine that anyone should have him on the hot seat, especially Philly fans. You had 1 bad game. Kevin Patullo is not coming back as the offensive coordinator. Okay, I totally get that. Fine. Maybe A.J. Brown is not a good fit either anymore. You got to move on. Fine. I get all that. Nick Sirianni, there is no coach in the NFL. Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh deserve to be more on a hot seat than Nick Sirianni does right now. Nick Sirianni is a winner. He's 59-26. He's 6-4 in the playoffs. What is he not doing? This whole culture of we need to fire coaches constantly is getting absurd. Nick Sirianni should have his job safer than anybody else in the NFL. And I'm sorry I'm emotional about it, but it's true. Nick Sirianni is a winner, and that man deserves to be the head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles at least the next 5 seasons, or at least until they have 2 losing seasons in a row. That's how serious I am. It's ridiculous to think about that he should be on the hot seat. And I don't care what Philly fans think, because they don't know football like Nick Sirianni does, and he won them a Super Bowl. Be grateful. Be grateful. Sorry. You have anything else?
No, go ahead. Move on to Patriots Chargers.
All right. Patriots Chargers. Calm it down a little bit. I actually really enjoyed this game, believe it or not. Now, Justin Herbert did not look very good in this game. I want to emphasize that. I think he's banged up from some of the injuries. I'm not making excuses for it. I don't think Justin Herbert made excuses for it in his post-game presser. He also was the leading rusher, which is a problem for the Chargers. Uh, to me, the Chargers' injuries, I think, really just caught up to him in this game. I did pick the Chargers to beat the Patriots just because I was shaky on how many playoff teams the Patriots beat. Only one this year. Well, two technically, Carolina, but one with a winning record. So to me, I was kind of shaky on the Patriots, but the Patriots proved to me, yeah, they could beat a playoff team. So I don't know how they're going to fare against that Houston Texans defense because I think it's going to be the toughest unit they've seen all year. But Drake May did a great job, 268 yards, a touchdown, and one pick, but that's fine. He won the game 17 to 29. He was pretty impressive. Drake May also led the Patriots in rushing. The game was pretty quick overall. Mike Vrabel coached his ass off. There's not really too much to say about this, but the Patriots certainly were the better team. Outclassed the Chargers. The Chargers, I really think this comes down to major injuries, and they have to do some resetting with the roster a little bit, at least in terms of just getting healthy this upcoming offseason. I want to leave you some time if you have anything here. I really don't think there's much here. Good for New England for winning the playoff game, and Drake May proving himself.
Yeah. Justin Herbert needs to be first. First, he needs Joe Alt back, and
Agreed.
they had another offensive guard who was going to be a Pro Bowler but got injured. So he needs those two pieces back. But even with the healthy line, I think Justin Herbert has been put in the caliber by media to, like, he's been a media darling to the same point of like Josh Allen, where he just hasn't shown that though. And I think he needs to be looked at with more of a microscope and get more pressure. Like this game, yeah, it's just he got sacked 6 times. What do you want him to do? But like there needs to be more pressure on him, and he needs to do better if he wants to be in those conversations of the upper echelon of quarterbacks, because 159 yards in a playoff game is not good, to say the least.
All right. Patriots moving on and will host the Houston Texans, who defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers. Matthias, go ahead.
Okay. This game just enforced all of the narratives that I've been wanting to say. It's just this defense has to do everything but walk on water, and the Steelers might still lose. But it's just they had no life on offense. Like Aaron Rodgers or the Steelers had 112 passing yards, and especially just watching the game, just watching them get the ball on third down, and I was just like, okay, well, the Texans are getting the ball back. They were 2 for 14 on third downs. Like absolutely ridiculous, unacceptable, whatever word you want to say. They punted 6 times, and that was in a game where CJ Stroud had 4 fumbles, 2 of them were lost, and he also intercepted the ball, and we only ended the game with 6 points. And like that still sounds generous. Only a field goal out of those 2, out of those 3 turnovers. And it just felt like an unstoppable or a really good defense on the Steelers going against a pretty okay offense on the Texans. But on the other side, the Texans' world-beating defense versus an offense that was worse than the Texans. And it just felt inevitable. It felt ugly. It was a classic Steelers game until the fourth quarter, where CJ Stroud and company, more so the defense, not even CJ Stroud, they were like, we're done. We're going to put this away because this defense needs to put this game away. If this is Aaron Rodgers' last game, it has been an amazing career, but obviously not the way you want to end it. DK Metcalf, 2 receptions is unacceptable. I'm sorry I didn't leave you a lot of time. Go ahead.
Oh, it's fine. I don't have much to say about the Steelers. I will say with Aaron Rodgers, though, you're absolutely right. What a career. Definitely my all-time favorite Green Bay Packer. So great career for Aaron Rodgers. I wish him nothing but the best if this is it. If he does come back, though, I will not be against it, but I think he's probably done. And I certainly don't think if he does come back, he's going to be back with the Steelers. So that's my thoughts there. For the Texans, I kind of want to talk about this game a little bit more. So, yeah, the Texans should have put this game away in the third quarter or the second quarter, really. They should have been up at least 13-6 by the end of the second quarter, at least 13-6. And that's still, it should have been 20-6, really. That's CJ
Yeah.
Stroud did not look very good in this football game. And you know, I love CJ Stroud, former Ohio State Buckeye, but he did not look good in this football game. He did not look good. So to me, I am a little concerned about the Houston Texans offense, and that's why I'm not picking them to go to the Super Bowl. But their defense was stellar. That performance defensively, Will Anderson especially, that they are just a fun unit to watch. You know how much I've loved watching the Houston Texans this year. They've been my favorite team out of everybody to watch. Um, Especially because of their defense primarily. And even when Davis Mills was under center, their offense was a little bit more fun. We also need to talk about Christian Kirk in the game he had. He had a great game. And you remember, Tank Dell has been hurt most of this year, too. So
Yep.
that's been another thing for the Texans. They've been able to figure out things out. Nico Collins, okay, but Christian Kirk went off. I think we need to talk about that. He had a great game, and CJ Stroud did get him the ball when needed to. If CJ Stroud just stops turning the damn ball over, he would have had a better game. And you know what? Still, the Texans won. They were the better team. So I don't want to harp on CJ Stroud too much here, but to me, I I think this was the Texans making that statement, and now they have to go play New England. And New England offensively, while Drake May is good, he has not seen a defense like that Texans defense. But at the same time, the Patriots, if you're Mike Vrabel, you're scheming with that defense right now because you know you could take advantage of CJ Stroud after what he played like in Pittsburgh. So I think we're going to be in for an interesting matchup up in Foxborough this weekend between New England and Houston. And to be honest with you, that's the game I'm the most excited about on this slate. When we get to one sentence, one pick, I'll explain a little bit more why later. But that game to me is the most exciting of the four we have this weekend. And to me, the Houston Texans, even though I picked the Steelers to originally win this game, I'll explain why later, why I'm keeping them to. Well, I still will go back to my old prediction that they're going to go to the AFC Championship. They're still a fun group to watch. And props to D'Amico Ryans, man. Doing a great job as the head coach of the Houston Texans. Turned that whole culture around within a year. And they've won a playoff game every single season since he's been the head coach. He is doing one hell of a job. And
Mhm.
he's a former Texan, too. Possibly one of the best in Houston Texans franchise history, given how small the franchise's history is. Outside of J.J. Watt, D'Amico Ryans is up there now, but who knows with the guys they have now how that's going to pan out. But yeah, props to the Houston Texans. I've already kind of talked a lot about Pittsburgh, so to me, this being Mike Tomlin's last game is still a little sad. But at the same time, he did step down from the Steelers, and we did go over that at the beginning of the show. So I'm not going to harp on that too much either. You ready for one sentence, one pick, Matthias?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's get to it. Jake sent us his picks. Jake is off tonight, so it'll just be Matthias and I, but I will read Jake's picks off as we go over the games here. As you can see, these were our results from last week. Matthias, you are on a roll. You might have not won one sentence, one pick in the regular season, but you are the king of the playoffs.
Man, I wish.
And I wish I was doing better right now in terms of the wild card round, but that's okay. This is just for bragging rights, though. So dinner's not on the line, and we're still going to have dinner at some point where Jake picks and Matthias pays. And I just enjoy everything. All
Yep.
right, let's get to one sentence, one pick. All right, Jake didn't send a sentence, but he did send his picks, so I will make sure to get those on. Jake picks Denver over Buffalo. Matthias, will start off with you, of course. Who do you have?
I am worried.
You're worried about
And
who?
because these are the two teams that I've said have been the most fraudulent all year.
Well,
And now they're
someone's
going
got to be
against
more
each other.
fraudulent than the other.
Yeah, I know. Um, I'm going to pick the Broncos to win, and my sentence is Bo Nix flipped a coin and he's going to be Brett Favre this Saturday.
I'm taking the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen just won his first playoff game on the road. I think the Denver offense is not very good, and I think the Buffalo offense, because they have the better quarterback, can outshine that. So I'm going Buffalo. San Francisco at Seattle. Jake is taking the Seahawks. Matthias, go ahead and send your pick out.
I am picking the Seahawks, and my sentence is Sam Darnold turns around his narratives on his playoff career.
I actually certainly hope you're right. And to me, as long as Sam Darnold at least has a good game, he certainly does that. But I'm actually taking San Francisco here because even with their injuries, they've been there and done that. I am taking San Francisco to upset in Seattle. Houston at New England. Jake is riding out with the Texans. What do you have, Matthias?
I am also writing out with the Texans. They are my pick to represent the AFC, and CJ Stroud is not going to have a game like that probably ever again.
I'm also taking the Texans, and I do want to elaborate. This is why I think this is the most exciting game of the weekend because we saw a little bit of CJ Stroud having some issues against Pittsburgh. Is New England going to exploit that, or is the Houston defense going to exploit Drake May? That's going to be the biggest question mark going into this weekend. I really, really like this matchup, but I'm taking the Texans because I did say earlier on in the regular season, once they started getting hot, I think they're going to make the AFC Championship, and I think they're going to take down the New England Patriots and do exactly that. I don't think they're going to go to the Super Bowl, but I think they're going to at least get to the AFC Championship. All right. Rams at Bears. Jake is taking the Rams in this game. Matthias, who do you have?
I got the Bears.
You have the Bears?
Yep, I'm riding with them, and my sentence is don't you dare turn off this game, no matter what.
This is my second favorite game of the weekend that I like. I'm just more intrigued by the Houston New England matchup, but this is going to be a good game too. Is Caleb Williams going to be as clutch against the Rams? I don't think so. I'm going LA. The weather is going to be an impact in this game, by the way. I maybe should have mentioned that before you picked your game, but the weather is going to be an impact in this game, I think, and that could go Chicago's way. But we've also seen really good teams not care about the weather before, and I think the Rams are good enough where the weather isn't going to affect them. I'm taking the Rams over the Bears. All right, and so that will leave us with our picks here. I also should emphasize, Matthias, your Super Bowl pick of Seattle and Houston is still possible. Mine and Jake's is not because we both took the Jaguars to make the Super Bowl. And we were both very wrong. So your pick is still possible, though, if it's Seahawks Texans.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I think I should get something if I get it right.
Actually, you know what? Maybe we should. Maybe we make some sort of deal with the dinner situation or something.
If I get it right, I only pay one person's check instead of both.
I guess we'll figure that out. We'll have to negotiate it with Jake and stay tuned on the pod to hear what that is. But yeah, that is our picks. It's going to be an interesting weekend. I'm really excited about these divisional games. In particular, as I said, that New England Houston game, I think, is going to be the best of the weekend, at least the most interesting. That game to me just really piques my interest. The Bears Rams game does too. I don't know why Buffalo Denver doesn't really excite me as much as those two do, but that's my thoughts there. You have anything before we move on to college football?
Nope.
All right, college football, it is time for. We're going to keep it pretty brief here because honestly, honestly, the Miami Florida Ole Miss game was pretty good. Ole Miss gave them a fight. Miami just proved to be the better team. Carson Beck played a great game. Um, but to me, Indiana Oregon wasn't even a game. And I know you had some things on Kurt Signetti you wanted to talk about real quick. And so we have Indiana and Miami. We'll go over our picks for that in just a second. But to me, Indiana smoking Oregon the way they did, it not only says a lot about Kurt Cignetti and the program he's building, but it just says a lot about how far Indiana has come. Last year, they didn't, go over the hump. This year, not only did they go over the hump, they took down some big programs and big name schools with it. So if you have any thoughts on that, go right ahead, especially in this 56-22 victory.
Yeah, I'm going to like we've talked a lot about this pre-show, but I'm just going to bring it into light where we've both talked about how Indiana might be that like in the next couple of years they might be the ones running Big Ten
Mm-hmm.
because like it's that's all built around Kirk Cignetti. Like he has been an awesome coach. He has gotten that attitude. He even felt like it's almost Kobe-esque, like almost the Mamba mentality of okay, we beat Oregon 56-22. Why did we let up 22? Like there's always something to improve on, or there's always the next game. We're not holding that trophy yet. It's not done. Job's not finished. And it's really like that. If Kirk Cignetti somehow wanted, or for some reason wanted to leave Indiana, I would the Steelers would need to call him yesterday. Like that's the type of coach I
He's
think.
staying in Bloomington.
Yeah, no, 100% he is.
Indiana
But
is not going to let that guy walk out the door.
yeah, like yeah, like that's the type of coach that you want, especially for the high school. I mean, for the college level. And yeah, he just has this team running as a well-oiled machine. I do have something on the Miami and Ole Miss game as well. Ole Miss, just kudos to them for all the adversity that they've gone through this season. They were kind of my media darling to make it all the way through. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. But Trinidad Shamblin, I think that he showed up and showed out in both of his playoff games. And I think if the national championship goes a certain way, we could see potentially 3 quarterbacks go in the first round.
I don't disagree with you there. I think we could see three quarterbacks. Fernando Mendoza, I think, is the given out of the college quarterbacks we've seen in the playoffs. But Carson Beck and Trinidad is also going to be big coveted names. But the thing, too, is Dante Moore now not declaring for the draft, going back to Oregon one more year. Interesting. Is he trying to avoid the Jets or probably just the NIL deals? It's probably more so the NIL deals, I'd say, than trying to avoid the Jets. But I get it. It is the Jets. But the Jets are definitely probably going to be in the market for Trinidad or Carson Beck. So we'll have to see how this plays out.
Yeah, I would not be surprised for either or.
All righty. And that's our thoughts on college football. Real quick, we'll do our picks. Jake says Indiana is going to take down Miami in the national championship. Go ahead, Matthias. Who do you have?
I have Indiana by at least 5. I think it's going to be an extremely close game.
I have Indiana in a close game, too. They haven't seen a defense like Miami's yet. Miami is not going to make it easy on them, but Indiana has certainly proven that they could just outclass you in any way, shape, or form. They beat Ohio State and they beat Oregon in the regular season, but they outclassed Alabama and they outclassed Oregon in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to outclass Miami, but they're definitely going to win against Miami in a close fashion. I think you're absolutely right, Matthias. And we are going to leave the floor to you for about 12 minutes here of some NBA basketball. How does that sound?
That sounds fantastic.
All right, the floor is yours.
So my very first news point that I want to bring up is that the Nuggets have started winning without Nikola Jokic, which I think that's an alarm for the league because if they're already doing good with him not there, when Jokic comes back, that team is going to be just so much more scary. And I want to give kudos, all the credit to Jamal Murray in the last 3 games. In the last 4 games, because there's a game on while we're recording. On January 4th against Brooklyn, he had 27 points and 16 assists. January 7th against Boston, he had 22 points and 17 assists. And then this past Tuesday against New Orleans, he had 35 points and 9 assists. He just wants this team to not lose anymore. He refuses to lose, and this was almost the Jamal Murray we got in the bubble, or this was essentially the Jamal Murray that we got in 2020, like just continually bucket after bucket after bucket, and they've needed every single one because they're not even fully healthy. Like Christian Braun isn't playing. No, Bruce Brown isn't playing. Like it's a bit scary for how injured the Nuggets team have been, but they're still winning. The second point. Sorry, did you have something?
Yeah, pardon me before we move on. I just want to include Jamal Murray's been in the league since 2015, 11 years almost now, right?
Yeah.
How does that man not have an all-star appearance yet?
Because he does most of his stuff in the playoffs.
But he's doing it in the regular season. If Jamal Murray doesn't have an all-star appearance in 2026, it's rigged. There's no way it's not rigged.
I mean, unfortunately,
he's not voting for him.
He's going up against Steph Curry, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Anthony Edwards.
I get there's great NBA players across the board, but Jamal Murray has been the wingman to Jokic, essentially all of Jokic's run with the Denver Nuggets. He's been the Kyrie to LeBron. I don't get how Jamal Murray does not have an all-star appearance yet. To me, that is absolutely insane. But go on, Matthias.
No, yeah.
You're the basketball expert.
No, yeah, I agree. Just like he is a all-star caliber player, but just there's a lot of superstars running around this league for some reason. Just moving on from that, the next thing I want to talk about, starting from each conference, the East, it's kind of odd because the East looks like it's in a standstill. Like other than the 4th through 8th seed, where all the teams are essentially crumbled up against each other, and like that could see a lot of movement. But a lot of teams are not on big winning streaks. They're mostly like 5-5 in their last 10, or 6-4, or they're just straight up losing. But it's a really weird place where it's like a lot of the teams aren't going on big runs. Whereas if you look on the other side, it's a different story. It's a different story that the West is being a Wild West this year all over again. And one of the teams that I want to talk about is, if you're in Cleveland, your Cleveland Cavaliers, because they have the most opportunity to capitalize on this. They just beat the Philadelphia 76ers as of today's recording, which only puts them a half game behind them. And their next 5 games, they're most likely losing their next one because never mind. They're running it back on Philly on Friday, January 16th. So that could be another win for momentum. And then they have the Thunder, which not a lot of teams are beating the Thunder. And then it's Hornets, Kings, then Magic, which should be win, and the Cavaliers Magic is a must win if you want to pass them, because they need this momentum. They need to continue to climb up this ladder. Unfortunately, Darius Garland did re-aggravate his foot injury during the 76ers game, so it's not like I had a whole paragraph on him or nothing, or anything, but that's why I take notes while we're in the pod, not before the pod. But yeah, I was going to talk about how he's gotten the team on track, how he is leading the team in assists, and he's already the second leading scorer again. But they need to win these games without him. That's no if, ands, or buts. Because the playoffs, even the All-Star game, is coming around soon, and you need to prove it, because after the All-Star game, it's buck up or shut up. And that's going to turn around to Mobley and Jared Allen. because neither of them are averaging 10, and you could say, oh, they're sharing the load. No, I'm not hearing it. They need one of those to average 10 and another one to still average around that 8-7 that they still are. Mobley has been hot and cold in the last 5 games, just not the numbers. Like, especially rebounding points wise, he's been doing fine. He's been doing around like 16 to 25. But like for rebounding, he had a 4 rebound game against the Pistons without Jalen Duren. I don't even think he got 10 there. Like, it's what we wanted out of Mobley, we're not getting, and the Cavs are suffering because of that. Andrew, do you have anything to say about the Cavs?
I'm worried about the Cavs. I'm not feeling better about the Cavs at all. I was not worried about the Cavs at all going into this season, and I've been worried about them all season, and that says a lot. So, to me, it was a nice win today, but they lost to Utah the other night in kind of embarrassing fashion. And Kevin Love's return to Cleveland. Like, come on. Like, that's not worth it. That's not Cavs basketball the last few years. Like, I get it's the NBA. You could lose on any given night, just like the NFL. You could lose on any given Sunday, but please. The Cavs, to me, look like a 44-38 basketball team. They need to show something that puts them over the hump to at least 50 wins in the regular season, to even give me a glimmer of hope they can make it beyond the first round, let alone the second. The Cavs are supposed to be contending for an Eastern Conference Finals appearance, bare minimum right now. And I don't see that happening at all. I like the Pistons a lot better. And JB has a grudge against the Cavs, by the way, if they end up in a playoff series with them. Pistons look a lot better right now. I like the Knicks a lot better. The Knicks are in a rough stretch. It's the NBA. I know with the Jazz loss too, you could say that as well. I don't trust the Celtics because there is no Jason Tatum or Kristaps Porzingis anymore. So I don't think they're going to have the horses that they've had the last few years to get the job done. I believe the Magic will surge with the Cavs. At least I believe the Cavs might surge now that it's the new calendar year. I'm not high on the Sixers, so I think they may fall back down. And Toronto is still playing young and scrappy. So to me, the Cavs have no business being the 7. They should be the 3. They should be in the top 3 seeds in the Eastern Conference, given what we've been given this year, about what we knew about the East going into this year. So to me, they're underachieving. I don't know if that means Kenny Atkinson should be on the hot seat, but to me, this Cavs team is underachieving massively, and they need to fix it quickly. And that's my thoughts on the Cavs.
Yeah. I mostly agree. I also just believe that from even what I said in the beginning of the year about the Pistons, I knew they were on the come up. New York was the second, like Cavs in New York were 1 and 2 when it came to who's going to take the East. And I think like New York, even though they're in a weird slump right now, they still have that mentality. I think the Cavs still have that mentality, but right now, if the playoffs started today, like they would be going up against the Knicks round 1. That's not what you want.
No.
The Celtics, I think they just have an amazing group. And with Jason Tatum going down, we finally see how amazing that group is. How that's going to translate to the playoffs, I have no idea. And then going down like Raptors, 76ers, they've been turning it around, but I think the Cavs are going to have more momentum once they start hitting their stride. They just need to do it soon. The Magic, they hit their stride a while ago, but it looks like they're going back down to earth, and then now we're at the Cavs. But for the Western Conference, other than the Spurs, which the Spurs are 4 and 6, the top 9 teams all have a winning record in their last 10, or they went even. Like the Thunder, they went 8 and 2 and made a statement game, I believe 2 nights ago against the Spurs, where they beat the Spurs handedly.
Finally.
The first time and they made a statement out of it. The Spurs are still 2, but the Nuggets are tied with them at the 3 seed. And the Nuggets, once again, they're winning without Jokic. And the Timberwolves, they're 7 and 3 in their last 10, and they're ramping it up. The Lakers are falling, and I think the Lakers might continue to fall because of not even outside of Luka. It's just that they don't have a good rebounder. and it's been biting them over and over again. Like they need like a defensive rebounder that could catch lobs. Like if they need to call for Jared Allen. Like I think that's what they need. Um the Rockets have also been a bit shaky, but they're bouncing back. They're 6-4 in their last 10. And the Suns 7-3, and the Trailblazers are also 7-3. Those teams, they want to make some noise, and they're trying to. The Warriors are still also in the middle of that pack. They're 6-4 at the 8th seed. So yeah, the West is wild. I could name, like, I think Anthony Edwards is averaging 30, and he's not even the top 2 or top 3 when it comes to scoring in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's been a wild season.
And Anthony Edwards was actually my pick for MVP at the beginning of the year. So, I mean, it still could hold pat, but I guess we'll have to see as this continues. But for me, too, and the other thing I wanted to mention is the Detroit Pistons are on fire, man.
Yeah.
It's a team I don't want to see in the playoffs if you're anybody. And you actually even said it on a podcast, I think in October or maybe early November, that watch out for the Detroit Pistons. You are 100% spot on. JB has those guys ready to play. And, you know, people like to talk about JB Bickerstaff as he's a young team guy. He can't advance in the playoffs. I don't know. The Pistons right now look like they're the team going to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah.
I almost want to say they're a shoo-in. And right now, that should be the Cavs. And so to me, that's the problem I have with the Cavs too. But I'm not going to get too much into the Cavs now. You have anything else on the NBA, Matthias?
The last thing that I do have is on Milwaukee. They continue to fall in their standings, and even yesterday they played. They played against the Timberwolves and got absolutely blown out in a game that Anthony Edwards didn't even play, and like Giannis took a hard foul, made the shot, and then he started booing the fans. Like that's like Giannis has been in this weird thing where like he says he wants to stay in Milwaukee, but then his actions say otherwise, and his agent says otherwise. But then he still hops on the mic and says that he wants to stay in Milwaukee, and he's kind of like fence sitting where he needs to decide, okay, am I staying in Milwaukee or am I requesting a trade? Because I think that is going to be more respectable than what he's doing right now. But I think teams should at least start like putting an ear in Milwaukee's GM and be like, hey, we see Giannis is upset. Let me know if you want to trade. Like, I think we're nearing that of this situation. I just don't want it to turn sour because Giannis has been that piece for Milwaukee. Like when they had Jabari Parker, Brandon Jennings, like all these young pieces that they thought that they would hit on, it was Giannis. That was the one that they hit on, and I just don't want that relationship to sour because I know how much Milwaukee fans love Giannis.
Fair enough. I totally get it. And Giannis did win Milwaukee a championship. So if the Bucks do move on and trade him before the deadline, it might just be the best to reset that organization and start from scratch. And also, why is Doc Rivers still the head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks? Why is he still the head coach in the NBA?
Well, because he won a ring.
He won a ring in 2008. Okay, and listen, I know what I've said with the NFL. It's totally different when it comes to Tomlin and Harbaugh. He won a ring in 2008, and he's done nothing but blow 3-1 lead since. In the playoffs, it's different in the NBA when you fire coaches. Doc Rivers can't even get it done in the regular season, and I don't even know if Giannis likes playing for him or ever liked playing for him. It certainly doesn't look like he's playing like he's ever liked playing for Doc Rivers. So to me, there is no coach in pro sports right now that needs to be on the hot seat more than Doc Rivers. And I'm not saying he can't be an NBA head coach again, but I think he needs some time away from the NBA. Go do some media or something, Doc, because it's just there's just so much fatigue from all the postseason failures and now regular season failures. That's my thoughts on that.
Like, yeah, I'm inclined to agree.
All right, before we wrap things up on the pod, I do want to mention we got a comment from our buddy I Love DK Metcalf.
Let's go.
It was actually a week ago on episode 12, right before we uploaded episode 13. He wanted us to talk about the Jets defense not recording an interception this season. And so I will say that, yeah, it's awful that the Jets didn't record an interception this season, especially with a defensive minded head coach. But that's the New York Jets. I mean, they were a bad team from the start. I actually had faith in the Jets at the very beginning of the season because Justin Fields played exceptionally well against Pittsburgh week one. But, what I've learned the more and more NFL football I watch is you can never trust week one. You got to wait till like week 7 and week 8 before you know who's real and who isn't. So to me, the Jets not recording an interception, it's just an indictment on how bad they are. They're a mess. But they're with Aaron Glenn for the long haul, as they should be. And will they turn it around? I don't know. I was watching an old NFL documentary on some of the worst teams of all time, and the 1996 Jets were on the list. The Jets are notorious for always being bad, unless it comes to Joe Namath and the 1969 Super Bowl win. So that's my thoughts there. Matthias, do you have anything on that?
You kind of hit the nail on the head. I was going to say a defensive-minded head coach couldn't get, well, not that he couldn't get, he wasn't out there playing, but they didn't get an interception with him there. Like it's really not a good start for your career as a coach. Do I think that he's going to turn it around? We'll see week 2. Do I think Jets fans are happy about another stat like that?
Week 2, we'll see it week 2.
You know what I mean, year 2.
I know, I'm messing with you.
Well, yeah, no, we don't look at week 1, so we'll see by week 2 next year. But yeah, are Jets fans happy? I don't think they have since period.
2010, probably. 2010 was the last time I think a New York Jet fan might have been happy.
Yeah.
It's been that long. Like they have not made the playoffs since 2010. It's the longest drought in the NFL right now. Might be in pro sports. I'm not 100% sure. But it is the longest drought, postseason drought for a franchise, at least in the NFL. But you know what? The Browns were in it for 18 years from 2002 to 2020. Eventually, the Jets will make the playoffs again, but I want to emphasize eventually. And seeing how good New England is now and how good Buffalo has been, I don't see the Jets getting much better anytime soon.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to be a project that Aaron Glenn probably needs more than 2 years to work on. So, well, we'll see is the best way to say it. They did win 3 games this year. 2 of them were against Ohio teams and the Atlanta Falcons. So, and if the Atlanta Falcons would have beaten the New York Jets, Raheem Morris is probably still the head coach, and the Jets have the number 1 pick in the draft. Like that. That's how mind-boggling that game is, and how much was on the line in that single game. You can go back in an NFL game and look at that one and say, "Wow, that's what cost the Jets the first pick, and that's what cost the Falcons a playoff spot, and probably what cost Raheem Morris his job." So that's how the NFL works. Anything else, Matthias, before we wrap it up today?
No, I think that's it. Other than Greg Roman got fired from the LA Chargers, which is great. Why was Greg Roman your offensive coordinator anyways? But that's all I got.
Yep. Oh, that's it for today's edition of Raw Takes and Company. A lot of ground we covered there. We're definitely going to be getting more into basketball as football starts to wind down here. Matthias is definitely excited about that. Pitchers and catchers report soon too. So we got a lot to get to with Major League Baseball next month, which I'm excited for. But obviously, opening day is still over 2 months away. But that's my time of year, so I'm really pumped up about that. But obviously, we got to wait a little bit. March Madness isn't too long. 2026 is here, and we're in the thick of the NFL playoffs, and it's just getting a lot of fun and a lot of headlines. And I think the NFL offseason is going to be complete chaos too, just with the openings that are available, because these jobs are going to fill, and it's going to be interesting to see what big names go where, because there's just so many names that are candidates for these jobs right now. And it's going to be interesting to see who goes where. All right. That'll wrap things up. For Matthias Andahar, I'm Andrew Hody. Hope everyone has a fantastic week. And we'll be back with you. Hopefully Jake will be back with us next week as well. on Raw Takes and Company. Thank you very much for tuning in.